And joining us now from Munich is former Deputy Canadian Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. She is now Economic Development Advisor to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Thank you so much for being with us. This conference marks the first gathering of world leaders since the president here, President Trump, upended alliances and publicly criticized world leaders at Davos. I'm wondering, as we just heard from Inez about this new era, what is the tone of this conference toward the United States this time?
Well, look, it's just the first day, but Chancellor Merz of Germany, I think, set what is going to be the tone we hear from the Europeans, which is really they want to be friends. They want to be allies. They feel the transatlantic alliance has worked. But at the same time, they are not going to be pushed around. And they are going to increasingly take responsibility for their own destiny. Merz talked about a rift in the transatlantic alliance. He talked about how the old order was gone. And those are big things to hear from him. Like what I would say, Anna, for your U.S. audience, is Merz is the kind of guy who in normal times would be the European best friend of the United States. He is a conservative politician. He's a businessman. He worked for BlackRock, a U.S. company. He is an Atlanticist. He was the chair of Atlantica Brücke, which means Atlantic Bridge. He wants to love the United States. He wants to be a friend of the U.S. But he was very clear today that he is seeing real challenges in the relationship. And he was clear that Europe needs to step up and Europe needs to take responsibility for its own destiny.
Let's talk about relationships closer to home here in the U.S. The president not only criticized Canada's prime minister in Davos, he routinely threatens to ratchet up tariffs and has repeatedly said Canada should be the 51st state. It's been more than a year since I know you left your post as finance minister there. How do you think this current government's handling the threats made by President Trump?
I think Canadians are very proud of how our government and our whole country is responding to the U.S. And, you know, I would describe our approach, Anna, as the one that I took when I renegotiated NAFTA, when I negotiated what is now the USMCA with the first Trump administration. I was foreign minister then. I was the lead negotiator. We had a rough time. You know, there was a moment when then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, one of President Trump's advisors, said there should be a special place in hell for him. The president said some not flattering things about me. But at the end of the day, we got to a deal. And our motto in the negotiations was, we do not escalate, but we do not back down. And I think that is the approach you're going to see from all Canadians. Stephen Harper, former Prime Minister of Canada, Conservative Prime Minister, I'm a Liberal, has said that Canada should be prepared to pay any price to defend our sovereignty. And I think that's a view shared by the vast majority of Canadians. Also, we want to be your friends.
We want to be your friends, too. I can speak from the American public. We love Canada. We did see a rare bipartisan rebuke of President Trump's tariffs this week, the tariffs that he put on Canada, with the House voting to rescind those tariffs, including Republicans, members of his party. Trump will most likely veto this legislation if it reaches his desk. But what do these sort of defections tell you?
You know what? I think they tell me that at the end of the day, Americans are sensible, reasonable people who understand the value of a positive relationship with their friends, neighbors, and allies. And, you know, Anna, because Canada is so much smaller than the United States, something that Americans don't always appreciate is we are your best customer. The United States exports more to Canada than it does to China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. And I think it's Americans who invented the great phrase, the customer is always right. You know, the Canada-US relationship, I think, is one of the great win-win relationships in history. The fact that you have had a good friend, a good customer all along your northern border is one of the reasons the United States has been so successful. And we'd like to keep on going. President Trump described the USMCA as the best trade deal ever. I agree with him. So let's keep a good thing going.
Now he's calling it irrelevant.
Well, let's just say we're going to need to just keep on working. We're going to need to keep on working with all of our friends and partners in the United States. The thing about economic facts is they have a real gravitational force. And the reason that I am ultimately confident in the Canada-US relationship is it is truly a win-win relationship. I think the vast majority of Americans understand that. And what you're going to hear from your Canadian friends and neighbors is we will not escalate, but we will not back down. And let's get back to a win-win relationship that has allowed both of our countries to prosper for generations.
Former Canadian Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, thank you very much for taking the time. We appreciate it.